Hi, Joseph Villegas from Tech Solar. In today's video, we're going to talk about energy storage systems or home batteries. We are going to compare 8 of the most popular manufacturers for the North America market. We're going to compare their features, functions, warranty, and we're going to try to do it in an equalized form. So independent of the storage capacity, we're going to try to make them all the same. And they're going to vary from 9 kilowatts hour to 13 kilowatt hour. So let's get into it. So the 8 providers that we're going to compare today are the Tesla Powerwall, LG Chem, Enphase, IQ10, they have IQ3, SonnenCore, 10 kilowatts. In the newcomers, we have the Generac PwrCell SolarEdge home battery, Franklin Home, and home grid stacker. These systems vary on the expansion capability within the enclosure, like the home grid, for example, 9.6 to 38.4 kilowatts. But we're gonna try to make a comparison between all of them as far as the closest capacity. So these are the comparison parameters that we're gonna use for this video. Manufacturers with presence in North America. It's a levelized comparison using specs and manufacturer's documentation. Basically, we're gonna look at the specs, technical documents, and compare once against each other. Storage capacity between 9.6 and 13.6. I know it looks like a big range, but it's the closest we can get them according to the products that are available in the market and the different features and capacities and warranties. Included, there are 4 DC couple and 4 AC couple systems. System price is not factored because the pricing may vary depending on your specific implementation, the size, the scalability, retail, distribution. I mean, there is too many factors on system that to be a fair comparison. So once you narrow down to the 2 or 3 that you think you're gonna get that have all the features that you want, then you may want to go ahead and ask for price comparison. Soft parameters that are not considered in this comparison are financial stability of the manufacturer, purchasing lead times, like some of them have very long standard period of time before you can get your system, some are very short, so we're not factoring that. And we're not factoring the quality of customer service or tech support. Some have very good tech support, some have very questionable tech supports or very difficult to reach. So these are the soft factors that we're not going to consider. So this is basically specs to specs comparison. That's what we're going to do here today. And again, this is a good starting point, levelized point for you guys to then go and decide which of the 8 manufacturers best for your system, and then go into details of the 2-3 that you're choosing. Before we go into the 8 manufacturers that we're going to compare, I wanted to show this slide from the previous video in which we talk about why the battery chemistry was so important. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, I'm just going to remind you guys. Thermal runaway temperature, LFP, easily much higher temperature threshold than NMC. As far as cycle, the LFP again have almost triple the cycles of a regular NMC battery. And the energy density, of course, it is higher energy density on the NMC. And lastly, the LFP cells do not contain cobalt, which is a major issue for several factors. But you can look at the previous video and recap with detail what this information is about. Now let's move into how these 8 manufacturers compare one to another. We're going to separate them by technology, cell technology, NMC versus LFP, and also between well-established and new to market. So in the well-established, using NMC cells, we find the industry standard nowadays, Tesla Powerwall. We also find the LG Chem with their product RESU10. It's a 9.8 kilowatt hour DC couple. On the well-established LFP technology, we find Enphase IQ10. and also the SonnenCore 10 kilowatt hour AC couple, German manufacturer, very good reputation. They have been in the market for over 10 years. Well established. New to market, we find the Generac PwrCell. This is the company that have been installing fuel generators, gas, diesel, natural gas, for home and businesses for at least 30 years or more. Well established manufacturer, but newcomer in the energy storage systems. They acquired a small company in the Northeast and rebranded their product to the PwrCell. Also new to market is SolarEdge. It's the company that have been creating inverters, solar inverters forever. It's a well-established, well-financed company, new to the energy storage systems with a heavy investment on a South Korean company. Their product uses NMC technology. I'm a little disappointed about that. I would expect a newcomer, well-funded, and with as much knowledge in the industry will choose LFP cells, but just my opinion. There may be some reason for it, either financial or product or speed of development of the product, that make them choose NMC technology instead of LFP. On the new to market LFP technology, we find FranklinWH with their 13.6 kilowatt hour AC couple system. We also find the home grid stack, which is a stackable solution that goes from 9.6 to 38.4 kilowatt hour within the one stack. All these systems can be paired into multiples of them, and the capacity can grow. And it's a ridiculous number how much capacity you can have by coupling this system, especially on AC. You can AC couple pretty much anything in here and get great storage capacity. All these are good products. We'll see how they stack, how they compare against each other. So let's move on to the comparison, side-by-side comparison. Again, we have the same separation of NMC versus LFP. So these four on the left are NMC technology, using NMC technology, and the four on the right are using LFP. And we have again the well-established Tesla, Powerwall, and LG Chem, the same as the Enphase and the SonnenCore as the well-established. And then we also have the newcomers to the market, Generac PwrCell, SolarEdge, FranklinWH, and Home Grid. So same number of providers, more or less organized in a different way as the previous slide. Let's start with mentioning that the Generac and the Home Grid have been configured to match or align with the 9.6 to 13.6 kilowatt hour from the rest of the vendors, which are one solution, one capacity per enclosure. So as far as values, we have coupling, AC for the Tesla, DC for the Chem, DC or AC for the Generac, DC for SolarEdge, which I question that since they have to use SolarEdge inverters. I would call this an AC couple system instead of DC, but technically it's DC. The Enphase is definitely AC because within the enclosure you have the microinverters, which could be the same microinverters that you use for the solar panels. SonnenCore is AC, FranklinWH AC. The Home Grid is definitely DC. There is no inverters on that solution. There is not even a DC to DC conversion. This AC in here have a built-in inverter. The Generac could be AC or DC because this little box over here is actually an inverter. The system can use just the enclosure, the battery enclosure, and certify other inverter. And the LG Chem doesn't have any inverters. Tesla have built-in inverters and power converters inside that box, so it's definitely AC. As far as capacity, we have from 13.5, 9.8, and this is total useful capacity measured in kilowatt hours. So 11.4 on the Generac, configured with 4 battery modules, falls between the 9.6 and 13.6 kilowatt hour of the other ones. SolarEdge is 9.7, Enphase 10.8, SonnenCore is 10, Franklin Whole Home 13.6, and the home grid configured with 2 battery modules is 9.6. There is not a perfect match of all of them, but at least this is close enough. Continuous power is typically half of the capacity, so 5 kilowatt hour for the Tesla Powerwall, 5 for the LG Chem, 4.5 for the Generac, 5 for the SolarEdge, 3.264 for the Enphase, and that's calculated based on the power rating, that power factor they provide. They don't provide a kilowatt hour continuous power number. They provide a number plus power factor. On the SonnenCore is 4.8, Franklin is 5 kilowatt, and the home grid is 9.6 with 2 battery modules. As far as surge power, 7 kilowatt for 10 seconds on Powerwall, 7 kilowatt for the LG Chem, 6 kilowatt for 2 seconds on the Generac, 7.5 for 10 seconds the SolarEdge. Again, we have to calculate 4.845 for 10 seconds on the Enphase, 7.2 on the Sonnen, 10 kilowatt on the Franklin for 10 seconds, 14.4, which is a really high number for 10 seconds, also a high number on the home grid. As far as expansion, within the enclosure, you can expand the Generac from 9 to 18 kilowatt and the home grid from 9.6 to 38.4 with more layers sandwich in the stack. The cell chemistry, we know about it, and the temperature control. So this is a factor, this is a piece of information that a lot of people don't talk about it, or very few people talk about it, and it is important based on the cell chemistry. This value also plays a factor on the warranty. So liquid cool is what I will consider to be the top-notch cooling technology for any battery cell, especially the NMC. The NMC batteries need to be kept into a range so they don't go into thermal runaway. Tesla here using liquid cool is a mixture of water and glycol. This is a battery module composed of many cells. The cells are these little circles that extend from top to bottom of the module. And these pipes, these tubes, is a ribbon of micro pipes that go all along the whole battery module, touching every cell, and then come out on this end. Entrance and exit of the glycol carrying the heat away from the cells. So this is probably the best technology. It's a carryover from their EV cars. In the EV cars, they are so compact. Thermal runaway would have been a big issue if they didn't have this cooling system. So it's easy for them to carry it over to the stationary solution, so they get top-notch on that aspect. Passive cooling is basically letting heat dissipation based on the air surrounding the environment. Generac in here is using forced air, so it has fans in the top or the bottom to circulate room air through the enclosure to cool the cells and carry away that heat. Again, NMC with passive cooling, I think it's a recipe for disaster. In the LFP, active cooling is not necessary, so no fans or water cooling or glycol force cooling is not necessary, so this is perfectly acceptable. Passive cooling for the Enphase, passive cooling for the SonnenCore. The Franklin chose to add forced air active cooling to their system that probably lengthened the life expectancy of the cell. It probably makes it a better system, although probably add complexity, add components to the solution. And passive cooling on the home grid for LFP is perfectly acceptable. So Tesla will get the smiley face for the liquid cooling on NMC technology, and Franklin will get the smiley face for the LFP forced air cooling, active cooling on their system. Now LG Chem and SolarEdge will get a frowny face for their passive cooling NMC technology. although the SolarEdge comes with the fire extinguisher at the top of the unit. So, and it's mechanical or chemistry based. So when the cells get too hot or when the system gets too hot, the fire extinguisher will kick in and will dissipate the fire inside the enclosure. I would say it's a good patch. I will not want my system to be dependent on that. It's a step above what LG10 is doing that has no fire extinguisher, passive cooling on NFC cells, but I would not recommend it either. Let's go to other values that are somewhat important. I wanted to use the pack voltage in here because I was hoping that it would give me an efficiency advantage. Basically, if the pack voltage is closer to the inverter voltage, input voltage, the efficiency is greater, so you will lose less energy. But at the end, it didn't turn out to be that way. The Tesla Powerwall modules internally work at 50 volt, the LG chain at 350 to 450 volt, the Generac at 380, which is interesting. They actually had to have a converter to bring the power of the modules to 380, depending on how many modules you have in the enclosure. And most of these also had to have a converter from DC to DC, from low voltage DC to high voltage DC, to be able to match the inverter, just like the SolarEdge also had to do the same. I think internally the pack is a 50 volt or 56 volts, something like that. Enphase works 67 volt, SonnenCore 202 volt, 102 volts. The Franklin uses a 51.2 volts and 48 volts for the home grid stack. Round trip efficiency, and in here you have to be careful because, for example, for the Tesla Powerwall, the efficiency is measured from AC to DC back to AC. So efficiency is compromised at 90%. 90% of the power that you use initially is what you're going to get at the end. In the LG chain, you see higher efficiency, but they're only doing conversion from DC to DC, so low voltage DC to higher voltage DC. That's all they can do. But by the time you add the conversion from DC coupling over to the AC that the appliance will use, you have to add an inverter in there. You probably end up about the same range as the AC. 96.5%, again, DC to DC, DC to DC, and 94.5% on SolarEdge, 89% on AC, DC, AC. So 89% is what I'm expecting. It should be a standard for an AC coupled battery system or a storage system. And that's because you have the AC conversion to DC and then back from DC to AC. So you see 89 for the Enphase is close to the 90% of the Tesla. It's different in there. The SonnenCore is probably the one that has the worst efficiency in there, and also AC, DC, AC. And that depends probably on the testing mechanism they do. They probably are conservative on this number, or they tested it in real life scenarios instead of perfect conditions. So I give it to them for putting it at 85.8% efficiency. The Franklin, 89% efficiency, AC, DC, AC. Again, that should be pretty much a standard. 98% efficiency from the home grid, and that's DC to DC. I think that number is a little high. I was expecting something like 95 or something like that. So that could be depending on the way they do the testing, or there is not much DC to DC conversion because the cells are already 48 volts. So the conversion from low voltage DC to high voltage DC will come out at the inverter level. So they're not accounting for that. Now, operating temperature is one of the factors that is very important. And here is where you can see the tug of war between the engineering developing a product and the marketing and the sales team trying to create a product that's stacking against other products and other manufacturers. So, for example, a technology with NMC, I would expect to have this kind of range for working environment, from -4 Fahrenheit to 122, and they can do that because it's liquid cool, so they can control the high end of the battery cells, the high end of the temperature range. So this is, again, liquid cool will allow them to work in more extreme environments. Passive cool here, they have to lower the lower range and raise the bottom range operating temperature. So that makes sense. It's passive cooling is still NMC. I think these numbers are acceptable. I would want to make it the high end a little lower and the lower end a little higher, but it's still acceptable. In the Generac, again, using NMC, they are matching 122 degrees, they're matching it to Tesla, which is a stretch. And the 14 degrees, they have to raise that temperature compared to Tesla, which is okay. I would like to see this 122 lowered as an operating temperature for that one. And then in here in the SolarEdge, they're saying they're matching to Generac 14 degrees Fahrenheit to 122 degrees. For passive cooling, this is a stretch. NMC batteries, it should not be operating at 122 degrees temperature. This is definitely, I would think, is a stretch of the technology. On the LFP, temperature range is not too much of a concern, so they can push the limit to 131 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, this is passive cooling. They have to raise the low end. The LFP batteries cannot be charged on freezing temperatures, so I'm expecting that this technology will disconnect the battery when it needs to be charged below freezing. So this could be discharging, the 5 degrees Fahrenheit will be discharging temperature, not charging necessarily. So this is still pushing the envelope, but acceptable. The SonnenCore are more conservative because they have passive cooling, so 14 degrees to 122 degrees. That's probably what I would like to see on LFPs. In here in Franklin, they have the -4 Fahrenheit to 122 Fahrenheit. And this is a direct, probably, marketing strategy to match it against the Tesla. They match most of the product specs to Tesla, even though it uses a completely different technology, LFP. They didn't have to do that, but they chose to do it so to get one-to-one comparison against Tesla, the industry standard, and probably the biggest market shareholder on this home storage system or energy storage system. This range is perfectly good, especially for forced air, no problem there. And again, here in the home grid stack them, they're pushing the limit of what the LFP can do. At 140 degrees, 14 degrees Fahrenheit, this is a stretch. So this will probably shorten the life of the cell. I would not recommend it, especially for passive cooling, but there may be something that they're doing. Maybe there's some electronics that will disconnect the battery in extreme cases. I don't know, but this to me seems a stretch. The size, I would just wanted to point out that NMC, the battery cells are smaller. For example, the thickness, 5.7 inches of dimensional depth compared to 8.1, 10, 9. So these are smaller in comparison to the LFP, which are 12 inches thick, 11, and 15. So there is a complete difference, there is a visible difference between an LFP cell on size-wise. All the 42 by 26 by 12 is much bigger than 29 by 45 by 5 something. And then the same on the weight. You can see on the weight that most of the NMCs are around 200 pounds. I don't know why the Generac is so heavy, but it should be 250 pounds or around there. And all the LFPs are going to be 350 pounds, except for, I don't know why the Franklin is at 400 pounds, so probably 50 pounds more than what I expected. And then the home grid comes down below what I would say the average, 350, probably because it's bare bones. So the chassis is the module. The module is the chassis, so there is no more enclosure in there. So there are some savings on weight in the enclosure. Basically, in here you can see the difference between weight between the NMC and the LFPs. So to round the specs in here, I will say that the worst performing on round trip efficiency would be the SonnenCore at 85%, 85.8%. The worst performer in operating temperature is probably the SolarEdge, pushing the envelope of passive cooling on NMC batteries at 122. That's why I'm giving him FranklinWH in there. Now, warranty. We can talk for a long time about warranty. I wanted to leave it for last because it's probably where we can spend the most time. The industry standard is about 10 years for the life expectancy or 10-year warranty. In here, Franklin Home have gone for the 12-year, and this is perfectly understandable because the LFP technology, I would expect it even more than 12 years, but 12 is conservative enough and good enough. The capacity at the end of the terms, in this case, at the end of 10 years, the end of 10 years, and in their case, at the end of 12 years, is 70% of the rated capacity at the beginning. So 70% of 13.5 kilowatts you're expecting. In this case, 60% of the 9.8 kilowatt you're supposed to get at 10 years, and so forth. 70% of 10, 70%, 70%, and so forth. 70% after 12 years, 70% of 13.6 after 12 years. So that's probably the winning combination in there. So with green smiley face. I can justify the 60% on the home grid because how they're pushing the boundaries of the cell. They're allowing the cell to be continuously discharged at 9.6 kilowatts, which will take 1 hour to discharge this pack of 2 modules. At 14.4 kilowatt for 10 seconds also is high, and then the operating range of 14 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 is also high. So I would think, and especially passive cooling, so I would think that these cells under these conditions will have 60% capacity after 10 years. So perfectly align the specification, the technology, the engineering, the solution to the warranty. So not for everybody, but if you have a solution, you have an environment where you need to push the cells and you need to have that size system, you need to operate on that temperature range or any combination of them, then you can expect 60% 10 years, and that's fine. I'm not giving them a frowny face. Now, LG Chem, 60% capacity and an aggregate throughput of 27.4 megawatt hour. That's the bottom of all of them. So all of them get up around 30 plus megawatt hour at the end of the useful period. And LG Chem is the lowest, 27.4. So 30 for the Generac, unlimited for the SolarEdge, 34 for the Enphase, 85 for the SonnenCore, 43 and 30 for the home grid. So this will be the bottom range, and for that we're giving them a frowny face. Now let's talk about aggregate throughput. Aggregate throughput is how much capacity you're supposed to get out of the storage system after 10 years if you use it within the parameters of the warranty. So 10 years charging and discharging 13.5 kilowatts give you 37.8 megawatts an hour. So if you discharge this 9.8 kilowatts for 10 years and expect to have 60% of the battery, you will get 27.4 megawatts an hour at the end of 10 years. And these are parameters that is stated in the warranty. The number here, this one is calculated based on how many battery modules. They're expecting 7.56 megawatt an hour per battery module. Since we have 4 battery modules, we get to 30.24 megawatt hours at the end of 10 years at 70% of battery life. Now, this guy's SolarEdge says that it's unlimited on the number of cycles and unlimited aggregate throughput. We're going to leave that for a moment. We're going to come back to it. Let's keep on analyzing the rest of the vendors. Enphase, 38.28 megawatts estimated. Basically, they don't give you a megawatt aggregate throughput. They just tell you how many cycles are expected out of it. And if you have cycles, the number of years and the percentage that your battery is supposed to be at the end of the cycles, you can calculate the megawatt hours of the aggregate throughput. So that's what we did here. So 8.75 times 4,000 cycles gives you that 34.28 megawatt hour estimated throughput. On the SonnenCore, they don't give you an aggregate throughput. They just tell you 10 years, 70% life on the battery, and 10,000 cycles. So if you have the cycles and the years and the average output that you're supposed to have at the end of that, you can calculate the aggregate throughput. And in this case, it's 85 megawatts hour. On the Franklin Home, it tells you there are 12 years, 70% of the life of the battery, minimum of 43 megawatt hours at the end of 12 years. And in the Home Grid, 10 years, 60%. And they also mention 4,000 cycles. They don't give you a throughput, so we calculate that as 30.72 megawatt hours. So just comparing megawatt hours aggregate throughput across the board, we can see that the SonnenCore is probably the biggest aggregate throughput at the end of the life. That means you can almost charge and discharge twice a day for 10 years and it still be within the warranty. So for that, we're going to give it a smiley face. Out of the NFC, let's talk about SolarEdge. Why I think this is a bad thing. Most people will look at this and say, well, this is a great warranty. So you have unlimited throughput and unlimited cycles. In the positive side, they are extremely confident about their product and they will not have to use the warranty or pay the warranty on this product. But since it is passive cooling and it is using NMC batteries and they're pushing the envelope of what the operating temperature is, I would expect that a lot of these modules are going to fail. This, in my opinion, it looks like they will nickel and dime, they will pick, they will find ways to invalidate the warranty. It looks like it's a way to get market share in comparison with the rest of the vendors. It's a marketing strategy more so than a real warranty, because there will be people that will push these cycles. They will run more than 4,000 cycles or they will get multiple cycles a day. So these batteries are going to fail in 10 years, or they will have less than 70% of their life expectancy at the end of 10 years. So in my opinion, this is a bad warranty. So for that, I'm giving it a frowny face. Now, just for additional information, we calculated the cycles given the aggregate throughput and the capacity and the years of operation and the capacity at the end of the terms. So you can calculate that the Tesla Powerwall will have 3,294 cycles. The LG Chem will be 3,494 cycles. Generac 3,100 cycles. These two manufacturers state their cycles on their warranty. And the Franklin will have 3,700 cycles. And the Home Grid will be, well, they state how many cycles they are expected out of their product. That's all the parameters we wanted to compare today. Let's assign the number 1 and number 2 spot based on their performance, their parameters, and also based on their category NMC versus LFP. On the NMC side, we'll see Tesla Powerwall as number 1 with their liquid cool system, which is probably extending the life of the cell. It also allows the system to operate at a greater temperature range, and it has a great aggregate throughput of 37.8 megawatt hour. On number 2, with no frowny faces, we have the Generac PowerCell, still NMC technology, but uses forced air, which is a minimum I would like to see on that product. I still have a decent aggregate throughput. On the LFP technology, we had the number one Franklin with 2 smiley faces. Again, forced air on LFP, which is not required, but it's great. 12-year warranty, an excellent aggregate throughput of 43 megawatt hours. In number 2, we're gonna have the SonnenCore. It's passive cooling, but still it has a great aggregate throughput, although it's a little bit dampened by the efficiency, round trip efficiency, which is 85.8%, which will lower this number to probably 75, 78 megawatt hours at the end of the life spec. So that is for LFP and NMC. The overall, independent of the technology, we're gonna have a winner, which is gonna be the Franklin whole home. And I think it's obvious in here, 2 smiley faces, great warranty, LFP product, and decent aggregate throughput. In number 2, we're gonna have a tie between Tesla Powerwall and the SonnenCore. And this was a really difficult, it could be a toss-up pretty much between the two of them, because both of them has a strong pluses and only a minor minus in here. In the Tesla side, if they will change to an LFP technology, which I know they're working on, it will easily take the number 2 spot or even the number 1 spot if they continue to do liquid cool in an LFP product. Or in the case of Sonnen, if they would increase the efficiency, round trip efficiency over here, that would be a great plus. Or if they added some active cooling, that would also take the number 2 spot easily, or even the number 1 spot. So that's all I have for now. This is, again, is a comparison of vendors in North America, well-known, some well-established, some newcomers, and again comparing the ones that are using nickel, manganese, cobalt versus lithium iron phosphate cells. And that's what it came up to. If you have better information, let me know. Please leave comments. If you find useful information in this video, please give us a like, subscribe. Thank you.